everyone, and welcome to this SWE Europe Inspiration session. My name is Madhuparna Datta, and I will be your host and moderator today. Just a short introduction to myself in case there are people out there who might not know me. I'm an electronic design automation professional with 20 plus years of work experience across India, UK, and Sweden. I'm currently an AE director covering people management as well as European tech lead for digital campaigns at a leading processor IP provider. I'm also currently a SWE Global Ambassador, and from the SWE perspective, I had also founded the SWE Cambridgeshire Global Affiliate a couple of years ago. So that's why a few of the affiliate members and global ambassadors out there might know me. Now, I am delighted to welcome a very special guest today, Françoise Chombar. She is the chairwoman and co-founder of Melexis. And I, apologize right away in case I've mispronounced the name in any way. Now, Melexis is actually Thank you. Melexis is a global supplier of microelectronic semiconductor solutions. As a global leader and entrepreneur in the STEM area, she is a passionate advocate for closing the gender gap in technical roles. To learn more about our backgrounds, you can refer to the link in the chat. I have got several questions for Francois to get us started. And as we go through the session, feel free to share your questions for us, as well as any comments or your experiences and ideas in the chat. And later on in the session, we will also have a live Q&A to address your questions and remarks. And then we will move into breakout rooms so that you can exchange ideas with each other. So let's get started. Francois, thank you so much for being here with us today. Melexis is obviously a company where innovation is vital for success. Could you share some of your experiences where you have seen diversity acting as a catalyst for innovation?
Yes, Madhuparna, and thank you for having me. It's great to be addressing such a international professional network. So fantastic work that you're doing, I must say. Yes, so to go to your question, what I've experienced at Melexis is the more diverse a team is and the more multi-dimensional perspectives you have in a team, the more ideas it will spin out. The better these ideas will be, and the more ideas you have, I mean, is a luxury because then you can, of course, have a greater chance of landing the right one for the customer or for the problem you have to solve. But the opposite is also true, and if you look at what things have happened in technology, and if I go way back, for example, when Apple brought out its first face recognition software to open your phone. In fact, Asian women, but only Asian women, so not even Asian men, but Asian women could sometimes open each other's phone. So clearly there was a glitch in, and they didn't think of that. There are multiple examples also, for example, of that soap dispenser, because there are quite some small movies on the internet that you can find where a soap dispenser only works for white people, let's say, and not for very dark skin. So that happens too. Yeah. So, and the reason is simple. When you don't have these multiple perspectives around the table, and the problems that these people have don't affect us, then we don't know about them, or at least we think, they're not so important. So in fact, as a company, making sure that your developers or your marketing people or your the customer-facing people, if they are not reflecting as well as you possibly can your addressable market diversity, if you want to sell to to China, it's clear, yeah, you need Chinese to sell to Chinese, but the same is true for you want to is your addressable market more the younger people? Yeah, then you have to make sure you have younger people in your teams, because if you don't, you are alienating a lot of your potential customers, and you're maybe foregoing quite some market share. So for me, diversity, and there is a difference between diversity and inclusion. Diversity is I like saying diversity is being invited to a party, and inclusion is being asked to dance. So it's not sufficient. Diversity is a base, is the fundament for everything. Having those different perspectives and different types of people around the table, but inclusion is making them work, is making diversity work.
I love what you said, that, inclusion is about getting people to come to dance. Very well put, for sure. And I have to say, I'd never even, thought about the soap dispenser. Now I'm going to, see how does it react. Cool. So I guess the next question would be, when we were exchanging ideas about today's session, you mentioned that engineers, whatever their background or gender, are often natural skeptics. Um, how does that influence innovation? What are the pros and cons?
Yeah. Well, I'm not an engineer myself, but I love engineers. They're my favorite kind of people, and I'm not saying this because I'm talking to a network of engineers. The proof is, I'm happily married to an engineer for a very long time already. Now, what I like about them, or what I love about them, rather, is that they never seem to take anything at face value. Yeah, they will want to see evidence. Yeah, they're skeptical from their upbringing almost, and it's like, yeah, in God we trust, but the rest bring data. Yeah, so and that can be very annoying at times. I mean, I must say that I have that sometimes with my husband. But at the same time, it's really an essential trait in innovation trajectories, because if you want to innovate successfully, you need to test your assumptions. You need to build prototypes to prove that the idea also works in diverse settings, in diverse real life conditions. And that's, how you increase the technical readiness level. Now, engineers sometimes think that they are the most rational people in the world. And sorry if I'm now saying something that you're not not agreeing with, but in my view, engineers are an extremely passionate and emotional bunch. Um, and and that is good, because emotions are the engine that propels human action. Yeah, it's like somebody said in a book, which is really good. It's Robert Sutton in his book Weird Ideas That Work. He says it's feelings, not cold cognitions, that drive people to turn good ideas and good intentions into reality. So you really have to be passionate about it. And that's all good. Yeah. And you asked for, are there cons as well? Yes, there are, because the pitfall can then be in innovation, and I saw this a lot with Melexis, is once they've found a solution, they fall in love with the solution and they forget about the problem. And one caveat that we always keep in mind in Melexis when we do innovation: fall in love with the problem. Don't fall in love with your solution. Otherwise, you'll miss to see it with the customer's perspectives. You'll miss maybe better solutions. And you certainly miss the other potentially better ways to solve the problem to begin with.
I love what you said, that fall in love with the problem and don't be that much sort of focused on just the solution, because that could evolve depending upon how the trends go. I also
Yeah.
love the fact
And
that
listening to customers, huh? Listening to customers is extremely
exactly, exactly. And I also love the fact about the fact that, engineers are very data driven. I can give a very recent example. At least in UK, we are having, the different, we are going to have our national polls very soon. And there are
yeah.
all these trends and analysis coming on it. And for everything that is being said, I said that that is all okay. I will actually just look at the result of the elections before actually trying to sort of make any comments of what is going to happen after the
Yeah,
election.
yeah. Exactly, exactly.
So, as you mentioned, right now that you're not from an engineering background yourself, and previously you have written about being both a woman and non-engineer in a highly technical company. Can you tell us more about how you embrace that and how it actually adds value by not being the norm?
Yeah, yeah. I'd like to answer that question with a personal story first, because, okay, I co-founded the company with two uh, other people, both men and engineers, and I was the odd woman out, and not being an engineer. And so in the first few years after starting Melexis, I always asked silly questions because I wanted to understand. Yeah? And despite being part of the founding fathers, not I was a founding mother, I really had to earn my place. And it took really, really many, many years of asking the most silly questions that I could. Yeah. Why is that like this? And why could it not be otherwise? And what is that? And explain it to me, and who and how, etc. And of course, I was involved in problem solving, because as an entrepreneur, and we really started with, yeah, three people, and then slowly we got to more, of course, and today with about 2,000 worldwide. But I like being involved in problem solving, and to prove the point that I made at the beginning was I had a completely different perspective. I looked at it maybe more with the eyes of the customer, or the eyes of the user, or the eyes of the operator that needed to make the product or test the product or whatever. And in the beginning, they looked at me like, that person is coming from Venus. Yeah, we're on Mars, so Venus, bye bye. But in some cases, I asked the one of my silly questions, and then you saw them. Oh, well, we didn't think of it, but yes, let's look at it. And then they went on, and it took a long time, but really several years before I earned my place within the engineering community. And the first time when an engineer came up and said, "Listen, Françoise, we have this, we're facing this issue, and we can't seem to get a grip on it. Can you please come and ask your questions?" And then I knew, yeah, I've earned my place. Yeah, that's where I really, and that was just because I was not the norm. And somehow by being in such a very technical environment, and having done everything as you do in a startup, everything, yeah, all the problems come to you, let's say. You start having a very multidisciplinary view, the not only the engineering view, but also financial, economic, today a lot of geopolitics, etc. So you have a kind, you build up many perspectives in your head. And here I'd like to quote a computer scientist from MIT, who's probably well known as well, Nicolas Negroponte, who once said, "Many engineering deadlocks have been broken by people who are not engineers at all." And and according to him, this is simply because perspective is in many cases much more important than IQ, because you can be extremely intelligent, but you can have these, yeah, tunnel
Blinding.
view,
Yeah.
you know. So and the ability to make these big leaps of thought, that is, according to him, a common denominator among the originators of breakthrough ideas. Usually, this ability is in people who have these wide backgrounds, who have done a bit of everything, who have a tendency to look at things in a multidisciplinary way, yeah, with a broad spectrum of experiences. And so, whether or not you are an engineer or not a non-engineer, let's say it like that, it's in fact so rich to embrace the others, the other non if you're an engineer, the non-engineer, and vice versa, because if you embrace the other's complementarity and you welcome these diverse perspectives, that's how you accelerate, in fact, innovation.
Yeah. I love what you said that, A is keep on asking questions. You might think they are silly, but actually they add value in some form, which gets realized after a certain moment of time. And the other is that, yes, it takes efforts, but believe me, one day you will get recognized for the value that you bring. So awesome points.
Yeah.
Um, Looking at the topic of psychological makeup from
Mhm.
another angle, I heard you speak recently about scientific research on the gendered brain. Could you explain to us what that is focused on?
Yep, yep. I learned to know that through many readings, but also what I wondered, and it was a bit of a thing in my head that said, but how come we have this gender stereotyping? Where does that come from? And I've read a lot of books where they said, yeah, when you go way, 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 way back, when we were still not sedentary, when we were walking around in the savannah, etc. There was not such a difference between men and women. There are many scientific proofs today that it was much more egalitarian, and both men and women took care of kids, etc. Because yeah, the survival of the tribe was the most important. Uh, Now, because I read a lot about those subjects, I came across a book that is called The Gendered Brain, indeed, written by a neuroscientist, Gina Rippon, a UK professor. And, um, sometimes when I looked at it, and when people gave you advice, for example, one of the best advices I ever got, and which I would have wished to have before going into the industry was, I there are so many times you doubt yourself. Yeah, and in my case, I doubted myself, my capabilities, my capacity to influence. I was a non-engineer amongst all these skeptical engineers. And I was often the only woman in the room, also when going to customers, because we worked most of the time for the automotive industry. And definitely in the 90s and the 90s, it was still a very, very male dominated industry. I was so much younger than most, and I still have those moments today. But from an age perspective, that's all solved. From the other side, not. So I have a life coach. He's an now already almost 80 years old, and my life coach at the time, that was when I really got the title CEO, and that's 20 odd years ago. And complaining about this, I said, "Yeah, I'm not sure if I can do this." And then he told me, "Hey, you are the CEO. Be your role." And that was simple. I said, "Be your role." Okay, that means I should not be my gender. So I should not be complaining about being the only woman in the room. I should not be my age, not complaining about, hey, I'm younger than most, nor where you came from, nor are you an engineer or not. Be your role. You're the CEO. But when I look at it right now, the crazy thing is that he unwittingly handed me a workaround. And it was a workaround probably for a shaken sense of belonging or a flawed self-esteem. And I still observe that today. So I mentor a number of people, mostly women. I prefer to spend my time with women, though there are also some men. I noticed that as well. And when I wanted to find the answer for why is that like it is, and there has been a lot of progress made in psychology, particularly in neuroscience as well. And in fact, the root causes are crystal clear, uh, and they are summarized, let's say, in that book, The Gendered Brain. And she mentions a near universal finding from thousands of studies that there's always a gender difference in self esteem. And hey, not a surprise, men consistently score higher. And women seem to be always more self critical, much more likely to underrate their work performance, or they have a greater fear of disapproval than men have. And if you know that y- the that self-esteem is so vital for our well-being, and it's as vital as food or shelter, um, then then you know we do have a problem that we need to somehow disentangle. And by the way, it's a universal gap. Yeah, but there are differences across the world. So apparently, the gap is the largest in South America from the findings. It's the smallest in Asia, and Europe and the Anglo-Saxon countries are more or less in the middle. Yeah. And what Gina Rippon says in her book is our brain mirrors the life it leads or it has led. And a gendered world, with all the stereotypes we're bombarded with, generates a gendered brain, period. Yeah. And knowing that gender is a spectrum, yeah, for the sake of the argument here, I take this simple dichotomy, male and female. We know there is no difference at birth. That's very clear. Yeah. But the journey of a boy and a girl is different. And it starts at birth. We're simply constantly bombarded with gender stereotypes. And there are some psychological tests that they did, like putting babies in a room, and they dressed up baby boys like girls and vice versa. And then they let in a couple of uh, uh, grown-ups, and the psychologists say, just play with the kids, just play with the kids. And then what do you know? Whether it's men or women, the adults, they think that they have a baby girl, but it's a baby boy dressed as a baby girl. And these get a lot of social toys uh, uh, being offered, whereas the boys get things that move, or where there is some spatial recognition needed, etc. So already we intrinsically have gender stereotypes in our heads. And one of the stereotypes is also, hey, STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, it's a boys thing. And the other thing that happens is, while they grew up, boys are praised for getting things right, but they're criticized for behaving badly. And for girls, it's just the opposite. They're praised, good behavior, yeah, you're doing fine, but they're criticized for making mistakes. So this affects girls' self-esteem negatively, very clearly. And then, of course, if STEM is a boys thing, yeah, then you avoid those environments because then you have the feeling, yeah, I don't fit in. It's not for me. And you need to know that, and I wasn't aware of that, the pain of social rejection activates the same areas in your brain as physical pain. So it's clear why belonging influences your well-being, right? You avoid pain. You're not deliberately, or something else is wrong in your head, but you're not deliberately, burning yourself. Not normally. So that's why the pain of social rejection is also a thing to look at. So I want to congratulate all of your SWE engineers, because they really persisted despite all those headwinds. But you see, you have to be stronger, and that's not good. The same is true, by the way, for boys. for example, more female stereotyped roles like teachers or nurses. Yeah, that's also not good. It's the other way. Yeah, but this is sometimes misdiagnosed as the imposter syndrome. But when it hits you, then think, yeah, I need to be my role, not my gender. Yeah, it has worked as a charm for me until I understood that it was really a workaround, but it's still just what it is. It is a workaround to navigate an unwelcoming environment. And I think we have to work together to change that. And I will definitely not stop, um, because we will get a better world if we do that. We will get more welcoming environments, both for men and for women.
Thank you. Actually, that's definitely quite enlightening. And I agree with you that just be the role, forget about everything else. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Brilliant. Now, looking at your company, I understand that Melexis averages 30% women employees with more balance in senior roles. Why do you think this gap remains, even for a company led by such a passionate advocate for gender parity? And what more can be done?
You see, you're an engineer. Show me the data. It's a very pertinent and intelligent question, and it really goes to the heart of the matter, Madhuparna, because this expression by the former U.S. President Clinton when he said, it's the economy is stupid." It's a famous saying, and well, here it's the inflow stupid. Yeah, so the STEM pipeline is leaky in general, for both for girls and boys, but it is leakier for girls, much more leaky for girls than for boys. And as mentioned before, it's not that it's about the capacity, because girls are as proficient in STEM disciplines as boys are, and that's proven by, for example, the PISA results and the OECD studies, etc. But you see that girls lose more and more interest from early age onwards. And we see two significant drop-off points for women in tech. That's after secondary education. So we already lose them over before that, but there's really big drop-off after secondary education. And then again at workforce entrance. And it's pretty much globally. Though in Europe, the dropout at work and at workforce entrance is even deeper. Yeah, it's even higher than in Asia or in the Americas. And then you can ask yourself, yeah, what more can be done? And knowing about the scientific proof we have on brought by us by and all these studies, I think there are three things that we should be doing, and that's really to adjust perspectives in multiple ways. And the first thing is you start with yourself. Yeah, you start with understanding that all of us, no matter who we are, where we come from, we have our unconscious biases. We have blind spots in our thinking, in our wording, in our narratives, in our behavior. So we do have blind spots. And that then, for example, turns into mirror recruiting. If you're not conscious about the fact that, in fact, you should hire your complement, you should not hire the one you see in the mirror. If you understand that, then you know, okay, I am not the norm, and you start doing things differently. And the second step is then, with that awareness, you can adjust the perspectives of the younger generation, and that's how you strengthen then the STEM pipeline. And you need to do that from a very, very early age onwards, because you can't be what you can't see. Right? Everybody knows what a doctor does, because everybody at some point in time in their life, even early life, goes to a doctor. But nobody knows who is the engineer behind all these equipments that the doctors are using. And even further away than in my sector, the semiconductors that you need in order to make that equipment work. So it's very, very far away from the user or the patient or the customer. So if industry professionals, whatever industry, they reach out to schools, they talk to kids and youngsters, particularly about so many gifted women that have been pioneers in the in STEM fields, really, really many. Um, we know that if female tech professionals address young girls in classrooms, even if it's only 15 minutes, and even if it's through a video, that is proven to increase girls' self-reported math enjoyment, the importance they attach to maths or science, and it boosts their belief, if she can do it, I can be successful in STEM as well. So it raises the likelihood of choosing a STEM career. And what's more, it does not shy away boys. Yeah, it does not. So if you do that 50-50 and many different profiles, technical, but also more academic, more abstract, more practical, all the profiles, all the ages, cultural diversity. So make sure you have a good mix, and then you can be what you can see. And then finally, a third step is then going to the corporate world, let's say, or to the professional world. It's not the women who need changing. Yeah, we women should not have to do or take workarounds, or any underrepresented group should not need to have use workarounds. We should change the culture. Because if leaning in means that women should be more like men, or other cultures should be more like, I don't know, the predominant culture, then we're missing the whole point. And we're not getting the best out of the diversity that we may carefully be building up in our organizations. And shifting the balance, and now I go back to gender, shifting this balance will not happen unless men in power positions, also women, but definitely also more men in power positions, they start acting as allies and sponsors, because that's how you create the real systemic cultural change that we all want to see. Right?
I agree. I mean, thanks a lot. I think all those points are very, very relevant, and thanks a lot for bringing them up. I guess now, we are both currently sitting in Europe, but you lead a global organization, and you can see that other regions may be performing better than we are here on gender diversity.
Yes.
From your experience, why do you think Europe is lagging behind other regions in closing the gender gap in technical roles?
Yeah. And that's a paradox, right? Because if you look at some studies who say Europe is a forerunner in DEI, in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it's what they call the STEM gender paradox, also well known. And it's clear that in countries where gender equality is high on the legal agenda, like in Europe, the female STEM inflow is low, and vice versa. And there is a complex set of reasons, because if it would be simple, it would be easy to change that, and you have it. But there are so many reasons, like there are economic reasons. For example, we're also in Malaysia, and in Malaysia, almost all of our IT and AI people are female. And that's why in the Muslim world, it's a Muslim country, parents say, "Oh, you go and follow computer science, because then you can have a job in a very safe environment, office environment. Many people, you can do that as a girl." Yeah, that's an economic, but also a sociological reason. There are cultural beliefs, cultural narratives. The unconscious and cognitive biases that we've been talking about, but also family science capital. So if one of your parents or both your parents are an engineer, then the likelihood that you will go for engineering roles or education and roles is very high. So it's really a multi-layered puzzle to disentangle and to solve. And if you are a leader, whether you're a leader of a country or an organization, a company, whatever, if you understand this value of diversity and you understand the power it can unleash in your organization, in the capacity to innovate, in the capacity to serve a very diverse customer base, and thus go to better results, then in the end, you have no choice. As a leader, you have to develop an inclusive leadership style. So that means concretely, you're attentive to your team composition. You listen more than you speak. You make sure the systems and the processes you have in your organization that give the feeling to everyone, every single person, they fit in. Even if they're a maverick, they will still fit in. You look at your hiring, your compensation approach. It shouldn't discriminate, of course, and that's valid for all the types of diversity, whether it's gender or cultural or ethnicity, neurodiversity. I mean, we didn't talk about that yet. Age, whatever. Yeah, uh, it's developing your inclusive leadership capability that will be important to adjust the perspectives that I just talked about earlier.
I think that actually resonates with me because in my case, my dad is an engineer and my mom was a doctor. So I know that,
Ah,
when I was even growing up, for me, medicine and engineering were the two avenues which I saw before myself. And you're correct. Like one of the reasons I became an engineer was because my father was an engineer, my elder sister was an engineer. So yes, it just became a natural way of going into that paradigm.
that is what is called family science capital, indeed. Yeah. Yeah.
So we have talked a lot about your professional experiences. I'd like to conclude by learning a bit more about your personal journey, as I'm sure it will be a source of ideas and inspiration for our audience. Could you tell us a bit more about your background, how you got into this area, as an entrepreneur and business leader? How do you maintain your work-life balance? And do you have any, sort of words of advice for people who are unsure as to how to map out their own career goals?
Oof. Yeah. Let me start by the latter one. I didn't know where I wanted to go until I was maybe close to 40. So no worries about that. It's my journey is probably a bit has been a bit strange as such because I always liked uh, to understand how things work, and when things were broken, I wanted to see how if I could fix them. So I had a bit of an engineering like interest, but I was also good at languages. I did Latin Greek because my mother did Latin Greek when she went to school, and she said, "Ah, you're good at languages. You do this." Yeah, and my mom was my absolute role model as such, even if she only got to go to school until she was 18, because at the time, yeah. And she was fired, by the way, when she got married. She was fired by her company. That was in 1960. What? Anyway, so uh, that was probably the right thing for a girl at the time. And But then I somehow, while in university, while doing my applied language studies, there was this fair called Flanders Technology International, and it's still that the brand still exists. It's represented by a human hand and a robot hand. That was in the 80s, beginning of the 80s. And there was this fair, and I was going there because everybody was talking about it and technology, etc. And then it was like, wow, what is possible with technology? I wasn't aware of that. Yeah. What was engineering for me? My dad was a technical designer of buildings. So he, yeah, did calculations all of his life. But there, yeah, the technology was just in front of me. And I fell in love with technology at that moment in time. I still remember that pretty wildly, really. And then my first job was at a textile machinery company. But very soon, my husband was offered a job in a semiconductor startup in Germany. And he said, I'd like to do that. I said, I don't. I don't know nothing about semiconductors. But okay, we still did it. And I said, yeah, on the condition that I can work there as well, because I don't want to sit at home and wait for you to come home and then do some laundry, etc. That's not for me. And so I started off there, learned about semiconductors. It was a startup, so I could start up the planning department and the customer service department. And after 4 years, together with a colleague that we came to know there, we thought, we can do something similar, but then for ourselves. And I thought, are you crazy? I was 27, right? Starting up a company, never would think that. But he said, well, we're very complementary. You see, we're very complementary. That's what, and he was 15 years older and had already done he was a real and is a real entrepreneur still today. Yeah, I know about sales and finance and really can design and do all the technical stuff. And you, Françoise, you can do all the rest because you're good at all the rest, organizing and supply chain and blah, blah, blah. And that's how we started off, like totally crazy. And here we are after, almost 35 years, or exactly 35 years at the end of the year. Just doing what we thought was something differentiating from the rest. Yeah, surfing the interesting waves of more electronics in cars, surfing the wave also of Eastern Europe and the fall of the Berlin Wall, which made a lot of difference for the economy, etc. And yeah, that's how it went, and here we are today.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I would say many thanks.
Circumstances and taking opportunities. And if there's any advice, I don't know if I can give any advice. There are probably many types of advices that you can give, but definitely the be your role is important. Don't be your gender or your age or whatever, but be your role. But also concretely, if you your career should be based on what fits your personal values. And the company you choose, or any type of work, even if you choose to do a startup, it should have a culture. You should do something that fits your personal values, but also that makes diversity work, because we have to be the role models. If we don't do it, nobody else will, as a matter of speaking. I'm exaggerating to make a point. And for example, when you decide to, and it's good to first go and work for a couple of years for somebody else, even if you want to do your startup, because it's good to learn. But when you interview, for example, with companies, ask them, for example, do they have a sponsorship or mentorship program for underrepresented groups? Who is heading it? Because if it's, for example, a gender diversity program and it's a woman heading it, not necessarily that effective. But if it's a man, or a man and a woman heading it, that's something else. And also how accessible this is. These are types of questions you can ask, but definitely ask a lot of questions during your interview to see if it fits, if the company culture fits your own personal values.
I love that. I love the fact, because I agree with you. You should always try to work in a company which is in line with your own personal values. Many thanks, Francois, for sharing these wonderful perspectives and
With
experiences.
pleasure.
I'd now like to address the questions we have received from our brilliant audience. And to all of you watching, please feel free to post any additional questions that you have in the chat, and we will cover as many as possible. So thanks to Com, I can see that there's been a wonderful question from Jyotsna. So her question is, culture change is a slow process. So what can we do now?
Yeah, it's yes, indeed. Culture change takes a long time, and even if, like in Melexis, we have a gender neutral culture, it's something you have to continue to foster and nurture because it doesn't come by itself. Definitely not when you get new people on board. You really need to make sure that they understand how valuable diversity and inclusion is. And if you are in a company that is more established, let's say, it's extremely difficult and tedious to change it. What works um, is, first of all, making sure that well, if you're of course working in a company that fits your values, then it will be easier. If you work in a company and you have the impression they're not appreciating the fact that you're not the norm, and they don't see the value of inclusion, then I think you should leave. Honestly speaking, because don't lose your energy in an organization that doesn't want to change, no matter what, doesn't want to change. That's losing your energy and losing your time. But companies who are willing and who simply are on their journey or want to start but don't know where to, those are companies or organizations that you can um, uh, build new processes. You can address the different process, or you are allowed, let's say, to point out this is a process that is not that is discriminating, maybe unwittingly so, but that is discriminating in the end. And I think if you are allowed to address this and work with your company to make that happen, then at some point in time, it goes very, 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 very slowly in the start, but then suddenly it turns,
Like a
and that's
tipping
the
point.
point. There is always a tipping point, but it can take a long, long time. Like the story I explained by myself, I think it took 10 years or so before I earned my place. So it can take a long time. So be patient, but don't lose your time neither, I would say.
I like that, always in your mind, be clear about what is it that you're really wanting to do. Why not work in a company which is in line, as you said even earlier, with your value system?
Yeah, yeah.
So there is another question from Oski, and I think we'll try to take a few more questions, and we might have to make some changes in our breakout rooms, etc. So from Oski, we have this question, and I hope I have got the pronunciation correct. Please forgive me if not. So the question is, how did you balance professional life and motherhood? And she then also mentions that I have a daughter and I work in a very travel intensive job. And sometimes I find myself exhausted or overwhelmed with thoughts of how to shorten her travels. So, what advice would you give to someone in this situation? And being a role model for her daughter keeps her strong, and she can find herself alone with these thoughts. So that's why she's looking for any advice in such a situation.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's hard. I personally have three kids, and the three kids came because I have twins, so a daughter and then twins with 2 years apart. And that was exactly when we started up the company. So 89, the company, 90, the first, and 92, the twins. So I had a hard time at the beginning, and I can absolutely, yeah, understand how difficult it is, and that you have the feeling I'm being lived. I'm not living myself. I'm being lived. Yeah, by all the expectations you have from family or from your parents-in-law or from your company, your boss, etc. I mean, it can be overwhelming. Um, and okay, everybody has to, of course, look at it from their own perspective and their own real life situation. But what is important is to have somebody, a partner, could be also a colleague, a partner, a friend, but a partner, usually there is a partner, not always, but most of the time, and have good agreements with your partner. Tell him or her that you have an ambition in life. If you want to have a fulfilling life, this, and this, and this is what I want to reach. Then I have a fulfilling life. And only when you have the feeling that somehow you're on that journey and you're allowed to live that fulfilling journey, then you will feel as a mother also much more able to be there for your son or your daughter. If you're continuously being feeling the weight on your shoulders, you need to change something. I had that at one moment in time, a difficult period with the family, and I had somebody who really helped me out by just saying, "You decide what is important for you. You decide if you want to when you want to be there for your kid, and you decide whether you continue in your job or not. Nobody else does that. You." And then once you made that decision for yourself, what is important for me in my life, and that can be very simple, then you need to make sure that you organize your life in that way, and you start with your partner. Because if your partner doesn't support you, what we did was, well, it was a bit easy because we were in the same company. And when he was traveling, I was home and vice versa. So the kids always had somebody at home. And for the very few moments where we couldn't make our agendas match, then it was maybe the grandmother or the grandparents who took care, but they always knew where we were and when we came back, and they learned to know the globe. So we had a globe at home, this with the light inside, and dad's now there and mom's now there. And how much it travels. So it was really fun because they had this assurance. Yeah, mom's gone now, and they weren't necessarily always happy about it. But she comes back then, and there she is, and that's the travel that she's making. And so you involve them in your life, because your professional life, and you're the same person, whether in the profession or in private, you're the same person, and you can make that match. But nothing is perfect. You need to let go of things too. Yeah. You cannot do everything. You are not perfect. You're not meant to be perfect. And your kids grow to understand that nuance as well. And it makes them stronger human beings in the end.
I do agree with you
I
that,
hope that answers the question a bit.
I completely agree with you that, no one is perfect. Just sort of recognize that everyone has got limits, but yes, definitely talk to someone who is out there who can support you. And I agree, like, I hope this answers your question. If not, just let us know in the chat. Is there anything else that you were looking for? So there's one more question from Toby. How do you grow your personal brand, and how do you relax after work? Very interesting, like two different questions.
Uh, Relaxing after work or during work. For me, it's not a 9 to 5. Of course, relaxing is important. Sleeping is important. Sleeping is getting enough sleep is so important. If anything, sleep enough. It's more important even than relaxing. Um, and what was the first question? Sorry.
How do you grow your personal brand?
Yeah, the growing of the personal brand. Um, um, when I look back, I was well. First of all, my personal brand is being a STEMinist. My hashtag is STEMinist, so that's a contraction of STEM and feminist.
Yes.
And I found that somewhere. It's probably found elsewhere, somewhere on the internet, and I don't know who first came up with the term. But when I looked at what interested me and what I wanted to achieve in my life and contribute somehow and uh, displace a couple of stones, little stones in the river, then it always had to do with how do we make life on this planet better for humans and better for nature? How can you contribute? And for me, it was diversity was a clear was yeah diversity and inclusion was never a question. Um, so somehow DEI had to be part of it. And the second thing when I look at all the big challenges that we have, then I think STEM is if you want to contribute, and I tell that to all the youngsters, if you really want to contribute to climate change, resilience and climate mitigation and adaptation, if you want to make sure that hunger is gone out of our world, if you want to preserve nature, um, etc., then you need technology. You need you need to base yourself on science. You need evidence, etc. And then STEM, a STEM discipline, educating yourself, is the best thing you can do. And that's why I combine the two. And then focus on this and say no to everything else. That's how you build your personal brand. Don't go and talk about other things. Stay with one topic. You can try to find out what is your topic for some time and try out things. But when you feel, you will feel that at some moment in time, yes, this is my topic. This is my brand. This is what I stand for. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life and feel good about it. Then you focus on that and you let go of everything else. And it can have to do something with your profession. It can have something to do with your family or your upbringing or the place where you live. It doesn't matter what, but once you have it, stick to it. And then after a while, you will build up expertise, you will build up experience, you will build up the network. And once you get known in the network, they will ask. And you will be, I mean, it's the word of mouth that then does what it does, but stick to the brand that you choose. Try things out, but then when you choose, stick to it.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot. Thank you again, Francois, and thanks everyone for your questions. I know we have hit the time, so in case anyone wants to stay back to go into breakouts, please do that. We have also put a link in the chat for the session survey, so please to complete this so that we can gather your feedback and ideas. And that's probably it. I'll just wait for people who want to stay back as well as, in order to go into the breakout sessions.
Okay.
And just please to fill out the survey is what we would probably just reiterate. And of course, you can stay up to date on the SWE European activities on our dedicated website and also follow us up on LinkedIn. Again, thanks a lot for your time. And we will just wait for people who stay back to sort of have our breakout sessions.
Thank you very much as well. Great questions and great to get to know you, Madhuparna. What's fun?
Brilliant.